I mean, you see a Tom Cruise movie, you want a stunt, and you have outdone yourself. There is a zero gravity stunt which cannot be performed on land.
No.
So why didn't you just say, get me the green screen, guys? Why do you go to these lengths?
So what happens when one actor tries to take control over the entire movie? Pure disaster. So it's 2008, and Universal has just dropped The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Now when the movie comes out, it does really well at the box office. Out of a budget of $145 million, it generates about $405.8 million. So at this point, the studio should be satisfied, right? But nope. When the movie comes out, people are going, I really like the first and second Mummy movies, but this...
Is that dog shit, dude?
People loved Jet Li's role as the Mummy. Brendan Fraser, who's usually very charismatic, was utterly bland in this movie.
Yeah, we're gonna hit him high, hard, and fast and smash him like a main phase.
And if that doesn't work?
Rachel Weisz was completely left out of this movie. So at this point, Universal was going, even though people are complaining about this movie, it still did well at the box office. So let's make another one.
Listen, fellas, I want more money.
So, Universal plans to make The Mummy, Rise of the Aztecs, which was supposed to be set in South America, with Luke Ford, Brendan Fraser, John Hannah, and Antonio Banderas attached to the script. But here's where things take a left turn. By early 2012, Universal is going, damn, Marvel is really killing it with those superhero movies. Why don't we do something like that? So they then decide to reboot The Mummy and hire the writer of Prometheus, John Space, to create a new screenplay. And after this, they start to think big, like Marvel-sized big. Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci come on as producers, Len Wiseman is brought in to direct, and they even begin eyeing Tom Cruise, not for The Mummy, but for Van Helsing. Universal then goes, we really can't afford for this to not work, so let's get a second writer to write a second script. That way, if the first one doesn't work out, we'll always have a second option. So they then hire Billy Ray to write that script. But here's where things start getting even worse for Universal. Len Wiseman, the guy they brought on to direct the movie, goes, I don't think I want to work on this anymore. I'm gonna go and work on a TV show called Sleepy Hollow. So at this point, Universal is going, what the hell? Like, what are we gonna do now? So they then get another director, Andy Muschietti, the director behind It and The Flash. And then they go, okay, thank God we finally have somebody to direct this movie. And then like 2 seconds later, Andy Muschietti's like, peace.
I am fucking out of here.
And he leaves the project due to creative differences. As it turns out, Andy wanted to make the movie a more lighthearted adventure, while Universal was going, nah, we actually want to make this movie a bit darker. So Andy walks away, and at this point Universal is freaking out. So what do? They go all in on a shared universe, and on July 2014, the Dark Universe is officially born. So now it's no longer just about the Mummy, it's about Dracula, Frankenstein, Jekyll and Hyde, the Invisible Man, the Wolfman, all of them living in the same universe.
Javier Bardem is playing Frankenstein's monster, and it's being directed by Bill Condon, who recently directed Beauty and the Beast, but also directed one of my favorite films, Gods and Monsters, which is about James Whale, the director of the original Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. And I think it's going to, continue an enduring tradition of these classic monsters made by somebody who is also a lover of those films and understands what the monsters are really about in a really profound way. So my hope is that with Dark Universe, which is our, company now dedicated to making these monster movies, that there will be continuity and through line and continuum between these monsters, but that each director that comes in to direct a movie will be able to put their imprint on their films.
So then Universal's like, why don't we launch this universe with Dracula? So Dracula comes out around 2014 and completely bombs. And I won't lie, I thought this movie was good, but not great. But on Rotten Tomatoes, it got about 28%. But audiences were saying, Universal, this is not it. So now Universal is scrambling again. What do we do now? How do we fix the situation? And what do we need to do to make this dark universe happen? So they then pretend Dracula Untold never happened, and they go, alright, get me Tom Cruise. Now at this point, Tom Cruise is one of the last action stars to ever exist. And whenever Tom Cruise is in a movie, people will genuinely go to see the movie for Tom Cruise. So in November 2015, Tom Cruise signs on for The Mummy, and just when Universal is going, yes, we finally have our action star, we're finally about to launch the Dark Universe, that's when things go left. When Universal approached Tom Cruise, they were going, hey, Tom, what do you think about playing the mummy in our Dark Universe? And Tom was like, oh, that sounds great. It makes me want to jump on a couch.
Tom, we've never seen you behave this way before.
I know.
Have you ever felt this way before?
But hold on, if I do this movie, I want to be in charge of the entire thing. I want to become the co-director, the co-writer, and the co-marketer of the entire campaign. So in exchange for a lower paycheck, Tom negotiates something most actors never get, and that's full creative control. Right? Tom Cruise has script approval, final cut privileges, marketing influence, and basically everything he wants. But little did Universal know that this move was going to backfire on them. So then this movie gets pushed back, and then production begins around April of 2016. And remember Alex Kurtzman, the guy who was brought on to direct the movie? Well, sometimes he would go, alright, so in this take, I want to see Nick Morton stumble out of the wreckage, looking confused and panicked. And then Tom would go, yeah, about that. I don't think that's gonna work. I don't think Nick Morton is confused because he's a man of action. Right? Every time Alex Kurtzman makes a move on set and tries to dictate how things should be done, Tom Cruise is like, I don't think that's gonna work, so why don't we do things my way?
You know, when you have two actors who are Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe, who are, you know, arguably two of the best actors of all time, often your job is to stand back and let them do what they do.
So what starts off as Alex being the director of the movie turns into Tom being the director. And it gets to the point where the cast is going, I think we're supposed to listen to Tom Cruise now. And that's exactly what happens. Alex is pushed to the sidelines, and Tom Cruise essentially becomes the director of this movie. Now remember that zero gravity plane crash in the movie? The one which had Tom Cruise nearly falling out of the plane? Well, before filming that scene, Alex was like, Tom, why don't we film this scene on set? I mean, we can use a rotating set and wires for safety, and this could cut down on production costs. What do you think, Tom? And Tom would go, I really like that idea, I really do, but let's do it my way. So the production rents NASA's Vomit Comet plane, the one used to train astronauts to film this scene. Right, you know how Tom Cruise is. If something can be done for real, he's gonna push for that. So filming this scene takes about 2 days and 64 takes. And because they had to do so many takes, the crew members were throwing up, they were getting sick, and we're probably thinking, damn, we should have done this on the set. I mean, this is crazy.
There was quite a lot of vomit. It's called the Vomit Comet. That's the name of the actual plane. So the idea is it rockets up toward the sky at the speed of a rocket going to space. It evens out, and then it free fall plummets toward Earth for 22 seconds. And in that period of time, you go weightless.
There was a little bit of buffing, as you like to call it.
Did Annabelle and Tom cope well with that?
They actually did. You know what? They didn't vomit. They did incredibly well, especially after 64 takes. The crew, not so lucky. There was a lot of vomiting, but that's why they give you the bags.
Additionally, during production of this movie, Tom Cruise goes, I think my character is not in this movie enough. Right? I need to see more Tom Cruise in this movie. So what does he do? He brings in Christopher McQuarrie and other writers to punch up his character. So now the movie turns from being a typical mummy movie, you know, the one that's supposed to be starring the mummy, and it essentially turns into Mission Impossible, The Mummy. So, eventually filming wraps, but Tom Cruise was not done. He brings in his personal editor, Andrew Monshine, to supervise the cuts. And they spend weeks in the editing room shaping the movie to fit their vision. Now, if things couldn't get any worse, Universal goes, what can we do to spice up the anticipation for this movie? So just 1 month before the movie comes out, they drop a promo photo that becomes infamous, right? Tom Cruise is in the photo, Russell Crowe, Javier Bardem, Johnny Depp, Sofia Boutella, essentially announcing the Dark Universe or the Avengers of Monsters.
To a new world of gods and monsters.
They also announced a full slate of movies: Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, Van Helsing, Wolfman, and even Creature from the Black Lagoon. They also tried to rope Angelina Jolie into these movies. So on paper, all of these action stars together, they look unstoppable. But here's where things take another drastic turn. The movie comes out just 1 month later. It comes out on June 9th, 2017, and it bombs hard. It opens at $31 million in the US. That's less than Wonder Woman in its second week.
You know, listen, to be part of a world, look, these monsters are part of the history of Universal Pictures. They really were created by the studios and made the studio what it is, a viable film studio. And I think it was an incredible idea to create this dark universe, to bring these monsters to the big screen for modern audiences.
Which really wasn't such a good idea.
Now, worldwide, the movie did make about $410 million, which isn't bad, right? Except the budget was close to $190 million, and the marketing itself was close to $150 mil. So in the end, Universal ended up losing about $90 million to this film. Right, so when the movie comes out, people were going, I thought this was supposed to be a mummy movie. Why am I seeing Tom Cruise on screen 24/7? Also, the first 3 mummy movies were exciting. They were fun, they were adventurous. But this one, it just feels stale and dark. So after this movie bombs, people start walking out of the dark universe. By August 2017, Ed Solomon walks off The Invisible Man, and by the end of 2017, it's clear that the dark universe is dead. So in one interview, Alex Kurtzman says, "The Mummy was probably the biggest failure of my life. It was brutal." Right? This movie was supposed to be his big break. He had only directed about 2 movies at this point, so he was looking for this one to put him on the map. But it failed. And as for Tom Cruise, just 1 year later he drops Mission Impossible Fallout, and it does exceptional numbers, making sure everybody forgets about The Mummy, except for Universal and Alex Kurtzman. So after this, Universal goes, I think we should forget about the dark universe altogether, and let's focus on more standalone films. So they then drop The Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss, and since then, Universal has been focusing on more standalone films. So I guess the lesson in all of this is, don't try to announce a dark universe before getting all the chips in place. And also don't let one actor take over the entire movie, because then it might become a vanity project. Anyway, what did you think of the movie? Did you hope the dark universe would happen? Let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next video.